We're now going to move into the kind of third learning section around evidence-based approaches to tackling stigma and discrimination. And I'm going to hand over to my colleague Patty, who is going to be facilitating this bit, so you'll have a break from hearing my voice. Also, just a reminder that the Q&A function is open if you've got any questions at all as well. So, I mean, there's the chats there, but there's also the Q&A function too at the top. So feel free to add anything in there as well if anything comes up too. So yeah, hand over to Patty.
Thanks, Claire. So when we talk about what works in CME, we pride ourselves on going back to the evidence base, to what research and learning tells us or tell us that is working. So if we're looking at approaches to tackling mental health stigma and discrimination, we have a number, which is basically 3, quite simple. Claire, can you go to the next step? Yeah. There you go. So there are 3 elements that we focus on, and the evidence base tells us that if you actually embed a combination of these 3, then you can be sure that you are actually working towards tackling stigma and discrimination. So can I have the next slide, please? So this is just a slide summarizing what I'm going to cover. So the 3 approaches are social contact, lived experience, education and capacity building, and influencing and protest. Next slide, please. So let's start with social contact. We defined, and the evidence base defines social contact when people with lived experience of mental health problems and people who don't have or may not know that they have mental health problems have conversations about their mental health and share experiences. It can be something that is arranged. So, for example, we do have national campaigns like Time to Talk Day when, conversations are encouraged, and CME works with partners to set up different conversation cafes and, create those kind of settings for people to have conversations. Walk a Mile is another example. But at times it can be ad hoc. So it could be when you're having a coffee with a friend and your friend mentions that they're not feeling great, and you might have experience and want to share that with them, or you hear a comment, throwaway comment about someone who has disclosed a mental health problem, and maybe there's a stereotype going on in there. And, if you have lived experience, you might want to have conversations with them to, rectify those stereotypes. So those are in a way planned or ad hoc. In a school setting can be difficult to plan conversations because of different reasons, capacity, maybe people don't feel comfortable or safe disclosing, and therefore you can use by proxy social contact, which is when you use films, movies, any kind of recordings or poems to encourage conversations about mental health. Next slide, please. Another approach is education, capacity building, and today is a great example of that. It's about teaching or sharing with people information, knowledge about mental health and related topics around mental health, including stigma and discrimination, so that we can, address stereotypes and perceptions that people may have about mental health problems in particular, so we can demystify myths. And part of education is to learn about mental health, so raise awareness of the spectrum of mental health, but also the idea of recovery, which is quite misunderstood, and also use of language. I know in my group before, we had quite a good conversation about language, what to say, what not to say. So educating ourselves is key, and feeling confident in having those conversations and overcoming mental health stigma and discrimination. Next slide, please. Yeah, I think I covered this. This is about mental health literacy, making sure that people feel informed and, knowledgeable about mental health and can approach the topic with confidence. And obviously understanding different types of stigma and discrimination as we have done before. Thanks, Claire. Next one. Yeah, so finding the words, this is we're going to do more around this probably at the next session, but this is part of the CME change, and it's about supporting young people as well as staff to understand language and the power of language. The words we say to young people and anyone can have a huge impact on how they interact with us, but also whether they reach out for help or they seek help from services. So it's important that we educate ourselves about what language to use. And that includes not just the words, but also the approaches. So it's worth giving thought to, are you talking to a young person or an adult? Are you talking to someone from a specific ethnic minority group? And educating ourselves about how they might understand mental health is very important to have successful conversations with them. Next slide. So some top tips here: avoid describing someone as suffering with a mental health problem, instead using experiencing. Avoid describing someone as schizophrenic or depressive, instead say someone who is experiencing schizophrenia or someone who has depression. Avoid using terms like nutter, schizo, as they can add to the stigma around mental health. Avoid using phrases like "I'm so OCD about." Try to avoid using mental health problems as adjectives. I think that's hopefully these are helpful and you can use them. It's quite practical, but you will get more as you go into the next session as well. Next slide. And then we have the last, so we heard about two approaches. We heard social contact and also education. And the third one is what the literature calls protest. In CME, we prefer the word influencing, because protest can be as a statement of action which shows disapproval or objection. And when we hear protest, we automatically think of, like big demonstrations with big kind of boards, and it can be actually quite subtle. That's why we like the word influencing. It's about amplifying the message on a large scale, and campaigns can be really helpful to influence a whole school community to tackle mental health, stigma, and discrimination. And when I talk about influencing, it's worth giving thought to small actions, so not necessarily big, campaigns. It could be actually, having a conversation with a working group in a school that is looking at a new policy or amending a policy to reflect on actually, is that new policy going to put barriers to young people or peers, staff that have mental health problems or are experiencing them or could experience in the future. So you can start to kind of influence some of those developments at a smaller scale. Next slide, please. And lived experiences underpinning each of these approaches. It's CME carries all the work that we do is advised or is influenced and advised by people with lived experience of mental health problems and also their families. And by lived experience, we mean a whole spectrum. So some people might have had a mental health problem and recovered fully from it. People might have mental illness and are still living with mental illness in their recovery journey. And when we talk about lived experience, there's a variety of, aspects to this. It could be looking at championing the value of lived experience voice through role modeling, for example, but also leading by example. And by leaders, we don't mean necessarily people in executive boards or at the top of the rank. We're talking about every single person in a school, from the youngest pupil to the oldest member of staff, having a voice and leading by example. Everyone is a leader in their own right, but we also can have peers that support and encourage conversations, like pupil ambassadors, staff champions, and so on. And when it comes to to talking to young people about the value of lived experience, one thing that might be helpful to do is thinking about a subject that they're passionate about. I like to think about climate change, for example. I know this analogy might seem a bit silly at times, but it's helpful for them to relate to something they're passionate about. So if you think about when the whole conversation about climate change started, I think it was around 2006 when the former Vice President Al Gore from the United States released, their campaign to educate people around global warming. And there was I don't know if you remember, a docu-series or a documentary film called An Inconvenient Truth. And people started talking like globally, like, oh, that's nonsense. Other people were very passionate about it and so on. And something for young people to think about is, we're 17 years on. If the polar bears had a voice, if they could actually talk about the impact, would things changed? Would we still be in this place where we are skeptical? So that could be something that can be can be used to help young people particularly understand the value of lived experience, because they can visualize polar bears really struggling. So just something I use that might be helpful to others, and a bit silly. I think this is this me, Claire? Do I have another slide?
Yeah, no. You're
okay. Okay, back to you then. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Patty. Who's been able to kind of describe those three approaches. So we've got social contact, education, and protest influencing as well, to all underpinned by lived experience. And I think Patty's kind of analogy there, the polar bears, is a good one, and also just thinking about kind of what we've learned from the videos as well, potentially as well kind of in the earlier half of this session too, just kind of highlight that the voices of lived experience are really central to our understanding. So any sort of kind of actions that schools are going to take to help tackle stigma and discrimination, there needs to be that lived experience within there, whether that's part of the kind of the planning and the shaping, and that's what See Me See Change does, and it provides is this space for staff and pupils to work together on an equal keel to produce this action plan for the school and really think about what some of those activities and actions look like, which is what I'm going to go into next too. So hopefully you've kind of got that theory and the evidence base, what this actually kind of looks like on the ground within schools. And I am very sure that lots of things that I'm probably about to talk about, schools are already doing. And that's what I find from kind of doing these sessions, is that kind of going through these things, actually schools might be like, oh, right, yeah, that's anti-stigma work, that's contributing towards us taking action against mental health stigma. Some things maybe haven't done before, and there's an opportunity to learn. And we'll have a bit of space after this just to kind of share maybe some actions that schools are already taking as well. To this next section is particularly useful when you are delivering the See Me See Change sessions, just to kind of get people to think about, particularly when it comes to the action planning stage. The pupil sessions will ask for the pupils to kind of think about what kind of actions and activities they like to see in their school that can help kind of promote some of the learning and help to tackle stigma. And the staff sessions really kind of think about it from a whole school approach perspective, which we'll go into shortly as well. But these kind of, will be some useful ideas and maybe for some starting points or some things to build upon when you're doing the action planning too. But I'm going to be kind of talking about lots of different resources, See Me resources here. Please don't kind of feel that you need to Google them immediately. I'm going to share a resource list after this session, so you'll have all of the links as well to all of the videos too. So we'll share that at the end of this session, so you've got that as well. So what actions and resources can be used in your school to tackle mental health stigma and discrimination? As Patty's already talked about, a big one is campaigns, and I know schools do a lot around this. We've got kind of national campaigns, but these could also be kind of school-led campaigns as well. They don't need to They don't need to kind of be something that's happening nationally. They do provide often the national campaigns, whether that be Mental Health Awareness Week or Time to Talk Day, as Patty said, provide a lot of resources and kind of good structure for supporting those campaigns and getting involved. But it also could be something that the school leads on as well. Here are a few examples of the See Me campaigns. There's lots more as well, and we've also got a campaigns pack, which will be on this resource list too, which gives you a lot of ideas for different things. So the first one here is It's Okay Not to Be Okay, which was a key young person's campaign that we had a few years ago. Again, just promoting that message that about that it's okay not to be okay, as it says on the tin, and that kind of asking for support and help is good. We've got lots of posters and things that I'll be bringing up to your different areas too for your schools in a few weeks around this campaign also. Down here at the bottom is a real example of a Walk a Mile campaign, and we have had many schools organise these. That it's, as it says on the tin, it's walking a mile, but each person is given a couple of prompt cards with questions to get them to maybe talk about kind of their mental health. This is a really great and effective campaign to engage the wider school community as well. So one to kind of link in potentially with parents and carers too. And these kind of, happen throughout the year at different points, and we've got all of the kind of resources to help you organise those as well. Time to Talk Day, as we mentioned, this is actually, this is a UK-wide campaign, and See Me runs it up here in Scotland, and this happens on kind of the first week in February, and it's a real kind of opportunity to create those spaces, as Patty said, for kind of social contact and the space to talk. So whether that's within staff rooms or within kind of department units amongst colleagues, and also for kind of pupils as well too. And then lastly, we've got the Pass the Badge campaign. Sorry to get it. And this is, again, another campaign that was a few years ago, where we kind of pass a badge. We've got some actual badges, and again, we'll be bringing some up, and it's an opportunity you can pass this on to someone else for them potentially to kind of talk about how they're feeling, or just talk about kind of mental health more generally as well too. So again, these are just some ideas from some of our national campaigns, and we've got a pack, but it might be that schools take these and they adapt them, and we really recommend that steal these with pride and kind of pull the bits that you like the most, and what's going to work for your school. Every school is different, every kind of context is different, so yeah, you can use some of these things, and we've got kind of resources and tools to support you to organise those too. Also ask the young people what kind of things maybe we could do specifically to your school as well. Here, it's just like, don't worry, you don't need to read all this. It's just kind of an example from one of the schools in Lanarkshire, Holy Cross High School, that celebrated Time to Talk Day and kind of outlines what they did. And we've got lots of these, again, will be linked in the resource link as case studies, which just kind of highlighted what some of what the school did. So in this school in particular, they had mental health ambassadors. It might be something that you've already got existing in your school. As a result of maybe the See Me See Change programme, it might be something that you create as well in your school for seniors too. And there'll be lots of opportunities, again, for some of the senior students potentially to lead on some of the See Me See Change learning and kind of take a lead on some of these campaigns too as well. So we've got all of these case studies on the website. Next one is assemblies and workshops. It's an obvious one, and I know schools have lots of these, but it's been a great way for those pupils that have taken part in See Me See Change sessions to then share that message with the wider school, in particular kind of some of the younger year groups as well. Assemblies and workshops are a very effective way, as we know, to for that education aspect and approach to tackling stigma. And so, yeah, whether that's done to kind of whole year groups, smaller year groups, or also kind of within classroom workshops as well to I know some schools in Fife recently have kind of taken some of the See Me See Change content from their pupil sessions and developed those into sessions for kind of new S1s coming into the school as well too. So really kind of getting that message from the get-go of pupils coming in too. So all those different topics around building that mental health literacy, language, how we talk about mental health, and yeah, understanding kind of stigma and discrimination. We've also got the What's on Your Mind pack, which some of you may already be familiar with. This is a fantastic resource that we've got, which has got loads, I think about 23 different lesson plans as well, too, which can be really useful tool for kind of, again, building mental health literacy, but also understanding stigma and discrimination, and loads of different ways we can do that. This is also really good, the What's on Your Mind pack as well, because some of these lessons can be taken and adapted by other departments. So often we find that a lot of these workshops might happen in PSE classes, but in order to encourage kind of a whole school approach to tackling mental health stigma, we want to see things happening across other subject areas as well. And the What's on Your Mind pack can provide a really good kind of foundation as well for some of those lesson plans as well. We've also got things like our What's on Your Mind card, which is a really popular resource, and again, something I'll be bringing up when come up to the part 2 sessions as well for schools, and we can send more out. And lots of schools have maybe done workshops around this as well, or kind of information sessions. We've also got other tools like our It's Okay to Talk resource, some of which is in this staff and the pupil sessions as part of CME See Change, but really thinking about kind of those responses and how we listen and respond to others when having those supportive conversations. So lots of that kind of key message can be taken and adapted for kind of some different assemblies and workshops. We've also got kind of signposting and information. Again, quite an obvious one, and I know this will be happening in lots of schools. Lots of schools have notice boards as well, with kind of key information about mental health. This example here is from Selkirk High School. As well, they kind of provided a lot of visual examples, which I've popped into this presentation here. So they've got kind of a talking wall, which was an anonymous way for pupils to discuss kind of any worries and feelings. And there was kind of paper slips on the board for them to write down anything, and questions kind of going up there. And the mental health ambassadors in the school were kind of supporting with sort of monitoring that as well too. And they've also kind of got that QR code. And then also kind of information, even as an event. This is a bit of a blurry picture, but this is an example from another Borders school where they've done a parents and carers event. So there was an opportunity to kind of share some of the learning from CME See Change, but also for local kind of community organisations to come together for parents and carers to learn a little bit more as well. Because as we know, if we're talking a lot about this within the school, we also want to kind of start if those conversations aren't happening outside of school or kind of around the dinner table, we definitely want to kind of try and involve parents and carers as well as part of these actions and activities too. Champions and ambassador roles. This is something that I've already kind of touched on as well, and might already be in existence in your schools, but definitely something that a lot of schools are exploring or establishing as well. And this might be kind of roles for those senior students who might take part in the CME See Change training and other kind of training as well. We've got kind of, again, some case study examples on our website of kind of this one from St Matthews in North Ayrshire, where they set up, they established the kind of ambassador roles, and they were responsible for kind of delivering some sessions within the school, kind of monitoring things like the notice boards, things like that. Some pictures here from another Borders school, and this is an example of the ambassadors in Selkirk High School who also organised like parent and carers information events. So it was very pupil led that event, which was great too. So again, the action plan gives a lot of opportunities for these activities and actions to be pupil led, obviously with the support of staff members like yourselves and others across those schools too. Physical spaces and safe spaces too is something that's kind of often come out of the action plans with schools, and this is maybe identifying those areas and spaces in the school where people can go and have those conversations as well. It's not just about maybe knowing that they can go to different people. It might also just be kind of having a physical space, and this works differently for different schools, I know. But it could be that there's kind of, lunchtime spaces, which I'm sure will already be kind of in existence. We've got here as an example of kind of like a desk space that's kind of been made as kind of like calming and It might not work in all schools as well, but just kind of a bit of a space with some resources and tools and things like that for people to take some time. So it's just also thinking about not just kind of changing that ethos and culture within the school, but also like, yeah, potentially those physical spaces in the school as well. And then we've got kind of thinking about the school as a workplace. So lots of these activities that I've already talked about a lot of them could be led by pupils and kind of be for pupils, but they can also be used to think about it in terms of the school as a workplace. And again, schools have done different things. So I've got an example here of Holy Cross High School in Lanarkshire, who have use their inset days to really focus on staff well-being. So they were taking part in the they took part in the See Me in Work programme. So it was an opportunity to share the kind of survey results from that. And they also had kind of some mindfulness coaching sessions. They had opportunity to take part in different kind of workshops. And there was also kind of opportunity to learn from other kind of organisations as well about kind of supports and things that could be available within the schools too. So really taking focused time for staff as well. And I've also got an example here from Dunoon Grammar School too. So I know that there'll be some people on the call from Dunoon as well. But this is kind of, again, highlighting kind of what the school did here. And one of those elements again was kind of looking at the sort of See Me in Work side of things. I was going to ask on Kirsty maybe just to share a few reflections. I know that she was involved in that there too as well.
Thanks, Claire. Yes, I'm having huge issues with my connection today, so apologies if I drop out. But just to say that in Dunoon, as a staff, we really felt that this approach was just such a fantastic way to join the dots, maybe between a lot of the things that we were already doing. So I know that in the group that I was in, there was some discussion around how perhaps it wasn't necessarily learning about things that you didn't know already, but it was bringing those things to the forefront and having more awareness of it. So for us, it really helped to join the dots between things like MVP and nurture. It then formed the basis of our relationships policy, and it's been a long journey for us. We started working with See Me in 2015, but I would say that it's still really so important and at the forefront of what's happening within the school still, and as just even small tweaks using some of the resources that Claire has talked about has really helped, and we've adapted those for our own context, but just having something there as a starting point to begin those conversations has really changed the whole culture of the school. I hope, and I know there's other people on the call. I don't know if anyone else, John, I know you were, sorry Claire, I know you've only given me, you said 30 seconds and I'm rambling on, but I don't know whether, John, I know you're on the call and I know you're not in the school just now, and Jenny, I know you're on the call and are in the school, but is there anything you want to add about that?
Hi, sorry. You go first, John.
No, I was just going to say that, yeah, I'm not actually in Dunoon Grammar School at the moment, but I think it's important that point you made, Kirsty, about joining the dots, because you're already doing lots of things that probably encompass mental health support in a broad sense, like nurture. So I think that opportunity to tie the dots together and not necessarily to be seen to be creating something new, which can also be a barrier as well. So I think that tying the dots together was really big for us.
Yeah, and I was just going to go on from that because I kind of took over the mental health room at Dunoon when I took this post about 2 years ago. We've been kind of looking at new things. We've got we've got our 6th years kind of working together to look at what else that we can implement into the school, because I think it was very much staff led, and we've kind of come up with new wee ideas there. So it's been really, really good, and also using our resources in house time and things like the resources that Claire sent me through See Me in house time and stuff has been brilliant.
Great, thank you for those little inputs there as well. That's really helpful to kind of bring it to life too. So yeah, what we've kind of touched on is some of the action, not all of them as well. But these are just kind of some of the things that can happen, and also quite a lot of the, what feature on a lot of action plans within schools. But we don't want to kind of give out a kind of template action plan for every school to adopt, because everywhere is different. Different schools will have different experiences of action planning, and it also might be that these action plans are kind of incorporated into kind of other action plans too, just making sure that it's got that anti-stigma focus. Here is an example of just a little kind of input from one of the school's action plans here from one of the activities. So staff and pupils would work together just to kind of think about something that they want to do. So this is the mental health awareness evening for parents, and it's got kind of, we'll break down the kind of things that who needs to be involved, the resources required, kind of the different actions people need to take, and what they're looking for to kind of achieve with that action too. So fairly self-explanatory. This is also an example of where we've got a kind of a blank template that schools can follow, and I'll show you those later too. But this is an example where the school hasn't used that template, so we're not precious. You kind of do it and kind of use it in a way that you would want to as well too. So what we'll do now, just kind of, just looking at time, is we will now go back into kind of breakout groups, and we're going to take 10 minutes just to kind of discuss kind of some examples of things that maybe are already taking place in schools. As I've said, I know that lots of schools will already be doing things like this, or also if there's ideas from that kind of maybe have inspired something. Again, just take that time to kind of discuss, and then we'll come back and be able to maybe share a couple of those as well too. So Jackie, if we could have the breakout spaces, that would be great.
Claire, can I just double check what we've to do here? Sorry, I'm in and out, so I might have just missed.
Just in your breakout groups, discuss things that maybe are already happening within schools that kind of align with some of the things we've talked about, or other things, or also just discuss kind of maybe some other activities that you might be interested in the school kind of taking forward as well.
Wonderful,
So just
thank you.
Have a bit of a chat.